Welcome to the party. You found the Mouse Castle Lounge, the place to be for good times and great conversations from the world of Disney. The bar is open, your table is waiting, and drinks are now being served. Come on in. And now, here's your host, the keeper of the Mouse Castle Lounge, Tim Calloway.
Welcome to the lounge. It's June 21st, 2016, and I'm Tim Calloway. We've got a terrific show for you today. We're looking back on the life and legacy of the late Disney legend Annette Funicello. My guests are Annette's husband, Glen Holt, and Dave Mason, Director of Development with the Annette Funicello Research Fund. But first, Mouseketeers, put on those mouse ears and follow the Mouse Castle on Facebook at facebook.com/the Mouse Castle. Follow me, Disney Tim, on Twitter, and check out the Mouse Castle on Tumblr, Pinterest, and Instagram. Share your questions and comments with us by emailing podcast@themousecastle.com or call our listener line at 702-475-5MCL. That's 702-475-5625. And of course, you can always visit the blog at themousecastle.com, where you can download the free Mouse Castle Lounge app for your mobile device. Just click the pick that says, Get the app. A few weeks ago, we previewed the Collecting Disney auction with Mike Van Eaton from Van Eaton Galleries. This past weekend, over 700 items of Disney history and memorabilia went under the hammer at the successful auction event. Two of those items were a sweater and a pair of mouse ears that belonged to Disney legend Annette Funicello. Proceeds from the sale of those items went to benefit the Annette Funicello Research Fund for Neurological Diseases. Annette founded the Research Fund in 1993 to research the cause, treatment, and cure of multiple sclerosis and other neurological diseases. In 1987, Annette had been diagnosed with MS, a chronic and often debilitating disease that attacks the central nervous system. Annette had the most severe type of MS, which eventually left her unable to walk or to speak. In 2013, Annette passed away at the age of 70 from the complications of MS. Her legacy, however, will always be that of an actress, singer, and eternal Mouseketeer. At the age of 12, Annette was the last child cast for Walt Disney's original Mickey Mouse Club TV series in 1955. Fueled by her talent, good looks, and girl-next-door charm, Annette's popularity quickly skyrocketed, and soon she was receiving more than 6,000 fan letters per month, an astounding figure in a pre-internet age. She appeared in numerous other Disney TV and movie projects, including Zorro, The Shaggy Dog, and Babes in Toyland. In the mid-1960s, her Disney contract behind her, she appeared in a series of popular beach movies with singer Frankie Avalon. In 1965, Annette married talent agent and casting director Jack Gilardi, gradually distancing herself from show business to raise a family. The couple divorced in 1981. In 1986, Annette married her longtime friend, rancher and horse trainer Glen Holt, who I'm happy to say is with us today in the lounge. Glen was married to Annette until her death and helped care for her throughout her illness. Theirs is a story of great love, friendship, and courage in the face of adversity. Also joining us today is Dave Mason, the Director of Development with the Annette Funicello Research Fund. Prior to the Van Eaton Galleries Disney auction, the three of us talked about how Annette's personal items are benefiting the Research Fund. But most importantly, we talked about Annette herself, her life, legacy, and place as one of Disney's most iconic stars. Today, we remember Annette Funicello in the Mouse Castle Lounge. It's my pleasure to welcome two gentlemen from the Annette Funicello Research Fund. I have with me Dave Mason, Director of Development with the Research Fund. How are you doing today, Dave?
Good. Good morning, Tim.
And joining him is the chairman of the Annette Funicello Research Fund, Glen Holt, a name you might recognize as being Annette's husband. Glen, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you very much.
I want to talk a little bit about the partnership that the Annette Funicello Research Fund has with Van Eaton Galleries. You have donated two very personal items that belong to Annette. Dave, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I think that for the past few years, we've been trying to help connect Annette's fans and friends with items from her personal collection that she wanted to be able to turn into additional resources that could continue the research into neurological disease that she was so passionate about. And so since 2012, we've been doing some of that. And in the years since Annette's passing, we've tried to connect with other individuals and organizations that could help us get the word out on some of these things. I was in a conversation with Mike Van Eaton, and he opened the door to the possibility of adding a couple items to the auction on June 18th. And that is when I went back to Glen and said, is there anything that we'd like to have them help us with? And we came up with the two items that you'll see in the catalog, Annette's Mousquetaire ears that she held in her home for so long, and one of the wardrobe pieces that she wore on the 25th anniversary of the Mickey Mouse Club in 1980. Those two pieces are, iconic Mickey Mouse Club items, and we felt like those would be things that might have that might really resonate within Annette's fans. And based on the kind of feedback we're getting, that's exactly what's happening. They love seeing these things again that remind people of her.
Yes, as I was going through the catalog, there's so many jaw-dropping items in there,
Right.
and certainly the items from Annette. And I was kind of tickled that the anniversary ears that you mentioned, she called them her bronzed ears, but all she
Right.
did was paint the ears gold, right?
Right, and I think that she wanted to be able to take a pair of classic Mickey Mouse ears, as simple as they were. And for years, she'd been asked the question, Annette, where are your Mickey Mouse ears? And she never had a good answer for that. So she finally came to the point when she said, let's put something together that would be representative of that entire chapter in her life. And so she had there was a plexiglass display case made for them. The ears were painted with a kind of a bronze gold colored paint. There were some other embellishments put on the hat to make it really stand out. But that's the hat that was featured in the Disney Disney Channel special on Annette's contributions to the Walt Disney Company that aired in it was 84, 85. So it was just a very special thing to her, and she loved being able to show that to people when they came into her home.
And also another item, I mentioned two items, is actually a third. There is a Western shirt that she actually wore on the Mickey Mouse Club.
Right. Mike Van Eaton talked about that, and that's not part of the collection that comes from the Annette Funicello Research Fund. We're really not involved in that one. But obviously there's a connection there and a sentimental attachment. Seeing that again is a wonderful thing for anybody. It just takes us back in our own minds back to when we all saw the Mickey Mouse Club for the first time.
I want to talk a little bit about the Research Fund and what it does. And Glen, you can jump in here as well. Kind of go into a little bit more detail about what the Research Fund does and how it operates.
Well, first off, we started that up in about 96, I think it was. And Annie had been doing some promotion for the MS Society. And we found out that there was a very small portion of the money that was donated that actually went into research. And it didn't sit very good with her, and probably around 10% or less. And she said, that's not really fair. And she said, I want to check into starting our own thing so that 100%, as close to 100% as we can, get that money to go into research. And so that's when we got a hold of the outfit in L.A. there, and a lawyer friend, and he set it up with the California Community Foundation, and we wind up starting the Annette Funicello Research Fund. And we're doing really well with it. And 90+% of every dollar that people donate now is going into research. There's no one draws any salaries or nothing. And what we just a little bit of expenses, for odds and ends, mailing and stuff like that is about all that we spend any money for, other than donate it right to the foundations that we have doing research. We've got about 4 of them going right now.
Aside from donating a number of Annette's personal items to raise money, what are some of the other projects or programs that you do to raise money for the Research Fund?
Annie she did some personal appearances at places, like her hometown in Utica, New York, and she would always pitch her research fund when she could. But there's not too much that we do other than just tell people and make them aware that we have the research fund and ask them to donate and support it. And it's been doing pretty good. And, thanks to Dave Mason and he has taken a lot of her personal items, and people would buy them, and all that money goes right into the research fund. It's better than just throwing it aside and or try to keep it somewhere and let it dry rot and have to throw it away down the road somewhere. But someone is buying that to keep, and it's keeping a lot of information going about the Annette Fund, because they know that the money that they pay for that sweater or earrings or whatever it might be, they know that that money is going to go to research for the Annette Funicello Fund.
One of the things that happened this past year, Tim, you remember Mrs. Jean Siemens, who was the teacher on the Disney Studio lot.
Yes.
For many years, she had collected Annette's homework, and she preserved them with her estate for many years until she passed. And her sister-in-law found the box, opened it up, realized what it was, and said, I think these things could be used to help the research fund. And that's when she contacted Glen. And some of those things now we've been able to help people connect with, and they've enjoyed seeing not only the homework that she used to do on a daily basis and the tremendous number of A's that she got on all that homework, but it was there are great memories attached to all that. And really, that's a lot of what this is about, is helping people reconnect with fond memories they had from their past, with their families, with their own parents, and they've been able to share these things, and it's been a wonderful treasure for them.
Certainly, there's no denying the iconic status that Annette has to so many Disney fans. Glen, if you'll indulge me a little bit, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about your relationship with Annette. And I understand you guys met because of a mutual love of horses. Is that correct?
Yes. I knew Annette way back. I think I first met her when she was about 16 years old. And she was at the racetrack, and she would come. She had a horse. Her parents had bought a horse for her. His name was Troy Hedgewood. And he was just a mediocre horse. But it was something for them to go see. And she would come out to the stables and pet her horse. And happened to be that my friend, Lord Dalton, I was in his barn stabling with him way back in, the late 60s, I guess, in early 70s. And Lord Dalton was the trainer of Troy Hedgewood. So she would come to the stables and I'd say hi and, how are you? It's fine. What are you doing? Oh, not much. And that went on till she had that horse for a couple of years, and they gave him away or sold him to somebody or something. And she got married, and I think when she was about 20 years old, and I didn't see her for a long time, but I'd see her parents a lot, and they kept coming to the races, and I would see them from time to time, and I'd just say, how's Annie, and how's she doing, and she's still working, and no, she sort of quit doing any work raising her kids, and after, I was married, and after all these years, she started coming out to the track once in a while and bring the kids out to the racetrack to see the races.
Yeah. What racetrack was that?
Hollywood Park, Santa Anita. We used to race at both places years ago, but mainly it was Hollywood Park. That was the closest track to where they lived, 25 minutes from their house. And they'd come to Hollywood Park a lot, and then we raced also at Pomona and everywhere, in Del Mar. But anyway, they'd come there, and after we'd race in Saturday afternoon, we used to race afternoons, not at night. And when you get done racing about 5:30, 6 o'clock, then usually everybody would go to some restaurant somewhere and have dinner at 7:30 something. We got to go into dinner with her mom and dad, and I said to her, Annie had got a divorce, and I was divorced, had been for 3 or 4 years. And I told her, I said, why don't I just come and pick you up and I'll take you out myself sometime? She said, well, I was wondering when you'd ask me. So anyway, that's how it was. And we were friends, see. She always said she married her best friend, and I said the same thing. But
Nice.
We knew each other for a long time prior to ever getting married or ever dating.
When you were both divorced and now found yourself dating, where did you two go on your first date?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. Just probably some little restaurant, somewhere. And I don't recall. We used to go to Chinese place on Ventura Boulevard. We go to a couple of Italian restaurants. She was not one for the big show-off places. Go somewhere to be seen. We used to just like to go anywhere. We'd go out by Valencia and go to a little restaurant out there in the hills. It was nice, a very nice place. And she didn't mind it, but she wasn't a status seeker, She was just a good old down-to-earth, wonderful lady.
She really had kind of distanced herself from the Hollywood crowd and her movie and entertainment career by then, hadn't she?
Yes. She always said to me, but she never, things that she said, I would never say it to anybody else. But, she said there's so much phony baloney with all these guys that think they're something special, And so she just sort of stayed away from that. She was a little Mickey Mouse star, and she made the beach movies and stuff, and she was very popular. But she maintained her down-to-earth status. She never was trying to be something that she wasn't. She just wanted to be the girl next door,
You two got married in 1986. Realizing that, she wasn't really part of Hollywood anymore. I mean, what was life like for you then?
Oh, it was wonderful. It was good. She loved going up to the ranch that I had. She loved that. She would help me with making my payroll for the guys. I used to have a lot of people working for me and trained a lot of horses.
And this was in Bakersfield, right?
Yes, and I still have the ranch. But she loved going there, and it was just a nice getaway, and no ifs, ands, and buts about it. She loved going to the Basque restaurants in Bakersfield. Became good friends with those people. They look forward to seeing her. I go in there nowadays. They still ask, they reminisce about when we first time we ever came to a place called Benji's Restaurant. It's still operating. Benji comes and says hi to me, and he says, I remember it's been 32 years ago or something like that, or 33 years ago now that I first met you and your wife when I had my restaurant over on Union Avenue, because he moved right after he met us to where his location is today. And, he's very proud of that. He got to know her, and he says, to know her is to love her. It makes me feel real good to know that people still love her, and they've always cherished their friendship with her. She's never hurt anybody in her life, to my knowledge, and she had nothing bad to say about anybody. She just loved to be friends and wanted to be just buddies with everybody, wanted to be friendly.
Nice. Now, this one, Dave told me about, and I never really knew this. You two kind of worked together, you and Annette worked together to produce a country album in the 1980s. Is that right? Oh,
yeah. She wanted to do a country album, and I knew a guy in Bakersfield that had a label, and I talked to him, and he said, well, I'll see what I could do, and I talked to different musicians around Bakersfield that I knew, and they said they thought it'd be a good idea, but it didn't turn out to be no big hit deal, but she did make a country album that she had a lot of fun doing, and we still got some of that. We still have some of those LPs, and I think Dave sells a few of them on the eBay once in a while. Nice.
Do you still have some of those lying around, Dave?
We do. They're on the eBay site now. The username for the research fund is just eBay user ID Annette Funicello, all in one word, and you'll see the album there. It comes with a certificate of authenticity signed by Glen, and it just authenticates where that album came from and why it was important to Annette at that point in her career. She hadn't made an album in quite a while, and so when they went to Nashville and got some of the best studio musicians that worked in Nashville to be a part of that album, it was an important effort for her, and to be able to play the Grand Ole Opry. These were great accomplishments for her in the latter part of her career, and it was a lot of fun for her.
And kind of an aside to that, before we started recording, Glen, you and I were talking about the fact that Annette had performed in Las Vegas with Frankie Avalon, which I never knew. Tell me about that a little bit.
Well, they made, I don't know how many movies, but they made several beach movies, and they were known as Frankie and Annette. And Dick Clark was a very, very close friend of Annie and Frankie. And I think Frankie and Dick Clark got together and started talking about doing a show. And they decided to do it. And Dick Clark, he was the producer of it, you know, and they went on the road for about a year and a half. And I knew that Annie, you know, Annie was diagnosed with MS 1 year after we got married.
Mm-hmm.
And that made things pretty bad. And so we never told anybody about it. And I knew, and I had talked to many, many people going from Canada to Mexico and all points in between trying to find something that would cure her MS, because I didn't know one thing about it. And I knew that I just had a feeling that as she keeps going downhill a little, I could see little changes, that one day she won't be able to do this. And I talked to Frankie Avalon about it, and I said, Frankie, I told him, I think he's the first guy I ever told. I said, I'll help you and help with Annie if she wants to do shows with you, but she has MS. And he thought it was muscular dystrophy. You know, nobody knew. That's what I thought first time I heard MS.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I told him, and I said, her balance is not good. And if when they were rehearsing the show for about a month before they ever did one show, I told him, and I pointed out to him that if you have her you help her to do a little bend backward or something, don't just stand her up and turn her loose, because she'll fall forward. She can't get her legs to move fast enough. So I helped him that way, and I was always very, very close to take care of her. And Frankie never said a thing about it until it was all over.
Annette didn't know that you had told Frankie, did she?
No, I didn't tell her, because she told me don't tell anybody, but I knew I had to tell him, you know, because he had to be careful when they'd walk out on the stage and stop quick. Her body would keep going, but her feet stopped, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the brain was working. And he knew to get out and walk out with her and hold her hand until she was absolutely stable, and then he could turn her loose and do everything. And they did a good job, you know, and he did a super job, and I was very proud of him. And they had a good run of going pretty well all over the country. The very first show they ever did, I think, was up in Washington State. They had 2 or 3 shows up there, a state fair, and 2 or 3 different. I think they started out on fairs in the apple country. Yakima, Washington was the very first fair they went to, and then they went to some others. And from there, they went all the way back to her hometown in New York, Utica, and did shows there. Oh, they did a lot of shows. We did a lot of traveling. But by the time she got through with that, her voice was getting to the point that she didn't want to try it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kept getting worse and worse. And after that, and people would see us, would go to a restaurant somewhere and to have dinner, and she would have to hold on to my arm, and people started to saying that they thought Annette had too many drinks, and she had to be helped out of the restaurant. And that's when she said, I got to go public with it,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
That was about 5 years after she was diagnosed, correct?
We got married in 86, and she was diagnosed in 87.
Mm-hmm.
And she had finished doing the shows. Dave, what year was that? I don't recall that Frankie and Annie did their live shows.
Well, 91 was when she was at the Golden Nugget with Frankie, and there had been lots of, the tour had happened in 1989 and 90.
Yeah.
But she went public with People Magazine and Entertainment Tonight and USA Today. That would have been in the summer of 92.
Yeah.
As Annette's MS started to take hold, how did your lives change at that point?
Well, the only changes is that I had to cut down on me training horses so I could be with her more.
Mm-hmm.
And it just sort of dropping off, and I put more on to people working for me to do my job as a trainer. And you just you can't hire somebody to do what you would do with horses. And It just got worse and worse and worse. And finally, I just had to go completely out of the business. But that was gradual. From having 20 or 25 horses racing in my stable, it got less and less. And then trying to hire somebody to do my job. If you can't train them, you better not have them at the track, you know, if you can't see after them yourself. Because you can't hire anybody to do training horses like I train, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my success that put me where I was. And I always said, you know, if this guy that I've got working for me can train a horse better than me and knew what to do with a horse better than I do, I would probably be working for him instead of working for me. You know, and there's so much difference in training thoroughbreds and standardbred. I train the trotters, you know, the standardbred horses.
Mm-hmm.
And every horse is individual. Every horse is different. And you have to see that. But anyway, that changed my life. I finally gave away the last 3 horses I had several years back because I had to spend 24/7 with Annie. Couldn't leave her for a day to go to the ranch, and I'd take her with me up there, but I didn't want to get out of the house. Only time I'd do anything when I had nurses. I had nurses 24/7 for the last 7-8 years
mm-hmm.
or longer. You know, had to help me because, you know, we had to do everything for her.
Right.
She got to the point she couldn't reach her hand up to itch her nose or wipe a tear. We had to do it for her. And if she coughed, she could strangle.
Mm-hmm.
You had to be right there to watch. So it took you had to be right on the ball, or she wouldn't have lasted as long as she did. You know, it kept her. Doctors couldn't believe that she had been this bad and looked as good as she did. Oh, no, never had a bed sore. We took care of her every day, you know, and, you know, it was unbelievable. But I had the best nurses in the country. And down toward the end, I had 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because we'd stay right there. Sometimes at night, they'd have to get up and help me with her. But I had good help, and everything got good, and she was very happy. She never had to want for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it put me out of business in the horse business. That's how it only changes. It just made me closer and closer for her, because I know well that she told me several times, I don't know what I'd do if it wasn't for you. And I said, well, I'm going to tell you something. I don't know what I'd do without you either. And I never let her, you know, dwell on being any burden, because she definitely was not any burden to me. Mm-hmm. I did it with love, and I cared for her, and I told her many times, I said, honey, I know what I'm doing for you. If it were me, you'd do it for me. And she said, yes, I would. And that's about how it affected us, you know.
What kind of support or an outpouring did you get from Annette's fans?
Oh, just a lot of notes and thanking me for taking care of her, and you are an angel, and you're this and that. And they'd talk to me, how do you do it? I said, because I love her, you know. She's my best buddy. She's my friend. It's no problem at all, you know. It's not awful for me to do what I'm supposed to do to take care of her. I'd tell them, I said, you know, when I married her, I took vows that I would care and take care of her and care for her through sickness and then health. And I damn sure did that. And I know she'd have done the same for me. I get emails once in a while, and I think maybe Dave's probably seen some of them, but, you know, thank you for taking care of a lady that I was in love with but never ever met her.
Mm-hmm.
And women writing letters and said, I was a fan of Annette when I was a little girl. And I always, in the little school plays, I wanted to be Annette when they had a school play. Still, many, many good things is being said about Annie every day. They loved her. And the guys that would come up to me and said, I don't know whether you like what I'm going to say or not, but I was in love with your wife. I said, well, I said, don't feel like the Lone Ranger. There was 10,000 other guys just like you.
That's that. Oh, I love that.
But really, that's it. They always said, oh, many times, guys come up. Oh my God, I always wanted my wife to dress and look like Annette. I loved her so much. I started watching her when I was a little boy on the Mickey Mouse Club. Even though she was older than me, she was 12 or 13, and I was only 5 or 6. But I fell in love with her, It's unbelievable. And Annie would always say, I don't know why people think I was so great. I was just a kid having fun doing on the Mickey Mouse Club what I was told to do.
Well, maybe that was it. Maybe she was just a kid having fun, and that just appealed to a lot of people.
And another thing too, Annette always said, I really can't sing that good. And that's the way she felt. But she had a voice that was different from everybody. And she said that I think that the kids, I was so plain about my singing that they could sing what I sung, and they liked that, and they learned that, and they liked it. That's what a lot of people have told me too.
Yeah, I mean, what got her on the Mickey Mouse Club was the fact that she was a dancer, because Walt Disney had seen her dance in a performance of Swan Lake. I remember seeing an interview with Annette where she said during the audition process for the Mickey Mouse Club, she was asked to sing, and she says, well, no, I don't sing.
I don't sing. That's right. And he said, but you can. Everybody's got a voice, can sing something. So he said, sing something, and she sang. Dave, do you recall that somewhere? It was a country song, like a Gene Autry song, a little bit or something.
Well, How Will I Know My Love? I mean, that was one of the first ones.
Yeah, she recorded that later on, but when she was being auditioned, well, let me hear you sing, but I don't sing. He said, well, try sing something. I just want to hear your voice, the tone. So she sang, give me land, lots of land, under something cloudy skies.
Don't fence me
like
in?
That. Yeah, all fenced in, I think, something like that. It was one of those songs that every kid could, do a little singing on. And he said, good, that's okay, thank you. She was hired because I think she was down to earth. She wasn't so polished, and she was there just being a good old girl, not trying to impress him. I remember that she said, my mom told me they're going to take me to the Disney studios for an audition. She said, I didn't know what an audition was, She had no idea what it was.
Talking again about your horses and love of horses, tell me about Uncle Walt.
We would go into the ranch. At one time, I owned all or part of about 50 brood mares, just mares to breed and have babies. And Annie, she loved to go out in the pen, out in front of the house, the pasture, and there was some mother mares out there that had their little babies, little sucklings, and she walked out in there, and I said, now, just be still. And the mamas come to you. They're not going to bite you. They're not going to kick you. Just don't get scared of them. And so she walks out, and she goes and stands there, and here come a little colt. He come almost running up to her, and she reached out and pets a little baby on his head. He'd probably never been touched with a human hand. And he stood there, and she petted him, and then here some more came. And she loved that horse. And I said, well, I'm going to give this to you as your wedding gift. I'll give this colt to you, and you can name him. So she named him Uncle Walt. And he raced, and he won races. He was not any world beater, but he did race. And he got injured when we were in Philadelphia racing back at the Meadows. And I gave him I talked to Annie. She said, just give him to somebody that'll take care of him. So I gave him to a lady that was working in the race secretary's office there. And that's what happened to Uncle Walt. But he wasn't sold to anybody to take him and mistreat him. She raced him, I think, till he was about 4, maybe 5.
And he was a trotter too, right?
Here's a pacer, yeah.
Pacer.
There's trotters and pacers.
What's the difference? I know nothing about horses.
Okay, a trotter is diagonal gated. That means that the left front and the right rear goes forward at the same time, and then the right and the left goes, and that's diagonal gated. Pacing horse is lateral gated. The left front and the left rear goes at the same time, and they always have 2 feet in the air, 2 on the ground,
Okay.
at the same time. A trotter is diagonal gated. They hit the ground with 2 left front and right rear at the same time. You balance the horses to do that. Make them to be a good trotter. They can't be pitty pattern because they can't stay in stride. So it's a lateral gated is a pacer, diagonal gated is a trotter. Now you know.
Now I know. See, this is why I love doing these interviews. I always learn something. I always learn something that I don't expect to learn. So this is great. I appreciate that. Annette passed away in 2013.
Yeah.
What is it that you want people to remember and appreciate most about her?
Oh, just for her kindness and her love for life and nature, and her honesty, and not being a show-off, just being a down-to-earth person, just a normal Joe, just a person that never met a stranger, always had time to talk to anybody, and never was snobbish, never. And if she had to be in a real big hurry, she would explain, honey, hurry and take a picture real quick because I've got to get in the car and I got to go, and I don't have time to visit, but I'd like to. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things. It's not just walk off and leave everybody. She had to kind of apologize. She was kind. I want her to be remembered as a very, very kind person, and to all of her fans. So that's about it. Just a super duper nice person.
Very nice. And Dave, if people want to find out more about the Annette Funicello Research Fund, where should they go?
I think the best way to approach it is for them to visit Annette's official website at www.annetteconnection.com. And there's lots of information there. Certainly there's information about our advisory team for the research fund. There's a donation link that will help people to know how to make a direct donation to the fund. There's links that can take them to the auction site so they might find something that they would enjoy having for their own collection. And there's lots of information just about the latest findings that we have in terms of brand new research and the projects that we're involved in right now. So all that stuff is available online for anybody that visits the site.
Well, Dave and Glen, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for sharing all your stories. And Glen, thank you so much for sharing Annette with us. We really appreciate both of you joining us today in the Mouse Castle Lounge.
Well, I want to tell you, I could talk all day long, and I wouldn't be able to find any nicer things to say about a person is my wife, Annette Funicello.
By the way, if you're keeping score, Annette's red turtleneck sweater sold at auction for $7,000. Her personal pair of mouse ears, $14,000. And that will do it for this edition of the Mouse Castle Lounge. Thank you to Glen Holt and Dave Mason for being my guests. Stay up to date with everything going on in the Mouse Castle Lounge. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud. You can also download the free Mouse Castle Lounge app, which you can get right now by going to themousecastle.com and clicking Get the App. The Mouse Castle Lounge is not affiliated with the Walt Disney Company. I just like to talk about him. I'm Tim Calloway. It's been a blast as always, so let's do this again real soon. Take care.